Welcome back to the DeeBrief YouTube channel. I'm Chase Alfasi, and this is all you need to know about Melbourne's Round 7 Anzac Eve clash against the Richmond Tigers. Initiated in 2015, these two sides have come together to create a solemn but unifying event that honours the sacrifice and service of the Australian and New Zealand military personnel. Finally, we've won a game of football, and yes, we're 1-5, but you have to look bigger picture and see the foundations of this new game plan. It probably isn't going to be a linear improvement from here, but it has to be a checkpoint. We can't be content with just the one win, and we also can't revert back to old habits. With the likely inclusion of Judd McVie, there's every reason to believe we actually have the assets to play this new game plan, to transition the ball effectively from our defensive half. Bowie was immense against Freo. Windsor can break lines. And Salem, I think he's still serviceable, but what is underrated is his courage. He's gone back with the flight on several occasions over the past few weeks. He's tough as nails. Rivers is still playing there. I hope he eventually goes back into the midfield, but the half-back line is certainly an area where we are stacked. And it probably wouldn't have been well received if I said it last week, but we're actually the third quickest team transitioning the ball and the fifth most effective. It's just that final kick that we finally were able to execute against Freo on Saturday. Our handball passages were slick, and it was evident, being at the ground, that we were able to tame that red mist and abandon the long kick down the line. Pearce, Ryan and Cox only took 3 marks each for the game, well below their averages. It would be very Melbourne to go and lose this game after such an impressive outing last week. And Richmond aren't the easy beat that most thought they'd be going into the season. They've already knocked off Carlton, and they gave Gold Coast their first loss of the season. The reason it's so important that we don't revert back to our old habits of long bomb kicking is that's exactly what Gold Coast did. They had 20 more inside 50s. It was the archetype Melbourne round 1-5 performance. Nick Vlosten, Nathan Broad and Noah Bolter absolutely cleaned up. Now, Noah Bolter will not be playing as he now has a 10 p.m. curfew as a result of his sentencing. But in true Richmond fashion, they were opportunistic. Their game was built off pressure, and they scored 52 out of their 80 points from turnover. Taranto and Hopper have had really impressive seasons. They're dominant from a contested possession and clearance point of view. It then begs the question, Viney had the job on Sarong. Does he go on a Taranto this week? I think it worked against Sarong. Viney was able to get back into his own form, so I'd say there's no reason why that Simon Goodwin doesn't give Jack the job again. Stephen May is a test to come back in this week, who would be the obvious replacement for the concussed Turner, who was really impressive in the first half against Freo. So that's unfortunate. And then Judd McVie is also a test. And it was actually this corresponding game last year where I think Judd McVie announced himself. Didn't have a heap of it, but he still managed to get a single Brownlow vote, despite only having, I think it was 14 disposals. As per the Casey report, I don't think Cam is suggesting that anyone's going to come in from that VFL side. The only thing I could think, maybe Sharp goes out and they bring in a Bill Laurie or a Kynan Brown as our sub. Fritsch and Van Rooyen had 1 goal apiece, and I don't think they demanded their spot back. I'd like to see Fullerton get given another run. I know he didn't hit the scoreboard, but I think he straightened us up and gave us some forward structure. And also he was a very serviceable second ruck option. Now, I can't believe I haven't mentioned him yet, but Cozzy is ready to cause chaos again. There is no matchup for him. Richmond have no one they can put on him when he goes into centre bounce, when he goes deep forward. He started in 68% of centre bounces and then went forward. Freo had no answer, and I don't see why Richmond will either. I want to put it to you, how many goals does Cozzy kick on Thursday night? I'm going to say he goes back-to-back bags and kicks 5 again. All time, Melbourne are 34 and 36 against Richmond, which is not bad, I guess. I'm sure all Melbourne fans will remember our win against the Tigers in round 6, 2021, in this corresponding fixture. It was the game that Melbourne announced itself to the competition. We were 5-0, but we hadn't really beaten anyone. We come up against the reigning champs. We're down 0-20 in the first few minutes. It's a wet game, which suits the Tigers. And we just have a party. Christian Salem and Christian Petrarca were stars on the night. and Cozzy's sealer when he gives it to Ryan Mansell was absolutely electric. One of my favourite nights and one of my favourite games in that premiership season. Another game I want to talk about is in 2009, Jordan McMahon's goal after the siren. There is a great video on this by Jagger Skillbeck on YouTube. I highly recommend to watch it. This goal sends us to the bottom of the ladder, and in turn, we take Tom Scully and Jack Trengove, who were the obvious first two picks in the draft. And guess who goes pick 3? None other than Dustin Martin. Huge butterfly effect, and maybe we don't get Petrarca and Oliver off the back of it. We also did get Max Gawn in that draft, so it wasn't all doom and gloom, but can you imagine Dustin Martin running around in red and blue? Crazy. In terms of the mutuals, I don't want to get slandered, but I can only think of 3. That's Ricky Pettard, Brad Miller, and David Roden started at Richmond, I believe. Now, if I've missed anyone, I apologise. They're probably not in my generation, but feel free to let me know. We have not lost to Richmond since that 2021 game. And if there's one reason you get to the G, it's number 36. He is the most exciting player to watch. I cannot describe the feeling I get whenever he's in the vicinity of the ball. It's always a spectacular night with the pre-game ceremony, the torch, the lights. We've been a laughingstock for the last 5 weeks. We finally got a win. Let's get around the D. Let's get around the boys, get to the G, and lastly, go Dees.